So, as you probably know, Minecraft Live took place around 2 weeks ago, and literally everyone has already made a video which covers the entirety of the features mentioned in the live stream, right? Videos like this one, or even this one. Which means me making the exact same video would just be kind of redundant. If you guys wanted to see that stuff, you'd have watched it already on all the other channels. So in this video, instead of going through the prominent features of the 1.17 Caves and Cliffs update, I went through the entire Minecraft Live livestream with a fine-toothed comb, even analysing some parts frame by frame, to bring you every single detail that wasn't explicitly mentioned in Minecraft Live. So let's get started. For the first so-called secret feature in Minecraft Live was the addition of these vegetation blocks. In this video, it's fairly easy to see that these grass blocks or grass carpet like things, which are probably new blocks being added to the game, will also be naturally generated. It's also very interesting to note the similarities between this block and a grass block with connected textures enabled in Optifine, which could hint that maybe for this update, instead of getting a solid grass block, we might be finally getting connected textures. This grass carpet like block, however, is probably just a block that will be added and could be like vines but horizontally placed. Obviously it wouldn't have the same functionality as vines, but it could breathe the same aesthetically. Next up, we can actually see an Azalea tree underground. In the same bit of video that we can see the other vegetation blocks, you can see this block here at the side. At first glance, it just looks like one of the leaf blocks you can see on the surface on trees, just a regular, albeit retextured, leaf block. But when you look a little closer at that same block, it looks a lot like a half slab. It looks like a leaf slab block, right? However, if you look even closer, you can see a little brown stem here at the bottom of the block, which seems to show that this is either like a bush or a bonsai tree. I think that the Azalea trees, though they might be above ground as leaves, will be added into the game as mini bonsai trees or bushes, one block plants that you can use to decorate your worlds. This is also backed up by the fact that when you look at the Azalea tree that's shown on the surface, you can see that the logs here are basically oak logs in texture. They don't have a distinct difference in color or texture like every single other log does. This could be because the art for the log hasn't been released yet, but I'd like to theorize that either A, the little bonsai azalea trees down in the underground are from the azalea trees up top, or B, the bonsai trees down in the caves are like parasites or something, which send up these vines to trees on the surface and which change the leaves. Anyway, next feature. Also, there are some lesser points here, but you can see from this frame that glowberries can produce multiple berries at once, which will be the first time that one plant can have multiple completely matured and harvestable stages. In this frame as well, you can also see some sort of new underground block as well, which looks a bit like a branch or a twig that's present on cave walls, and which has a texture similar to that of like a coral fan. You can also get a much better look at this block at this part of the livestream almost 2 hours later. Next up, Mojang announced that stalactites and stalagmites are being added to the game as separate blocks, but what they didn't mention was that caves will also generate with inbuilt stalagmites and stalactites made out of blocks and not the new item. You can also see some columns which form where the stalagmites and tights quote unquote meet each other, which means it's very possible that these larger natural stalactites could point players towards the drift zone caves, which is where the smaller and item-like stalactites and stalagmites are found. You can also see from this portion that there are so many different stages and blocks associated with the sculk growth that weren't mentioned that the community hasn't really noticed in all the kerfuffle over the sculk sensor. For example, there's this yellowish block that's present in every clip with the sculk growth that you can see, and I think it's fair to assume that this is some sort of spore mother block or spore block that you can mine in place, which would cause sculk to grow around it. Just like the spore blossom is a movable particle generator, I'd be willing to bet that the sculk mother block is a movable sculk generator. It's also interesting to note the stages of sculk growth that one can see. It seems to slowly cover and overtake more and more of a block before that block becomes pure sculk, like you can see from this frame. It's also possible though that I've got this in the complete opposite order and that sculk naturally grows in some places and after time might spawn into these blocks or might form them after being bone mealed, or like a mushroom which can grow into a giant mushroom. Also, to lead on from the sculk overtaking blocks point, I think, and I could be completely wrong here, that the warden is actually an iron golem that's been overtaken by sculk. Their color palettes are similar save for the sculk elements on the warden, and the warden is substantially larger. Given that the sculk would have grown onto the warden, it does make sense that the warden would be larger. Anyway, back to details you might have missed. In the deep dark, we can see that the light levels randomly dim from time to time, and this effect might have been either caused by the warden or be an effect that a player gets when they enter the deep dark, no matter what. In addition to this, you can see that certain light sources are rendered completely useless by this dimming effect, and some are greatly reduced in efficiency, like the torches, which become next to useless during the dark phase. It's in this frame that we can also see candles as a new form of light source, which have a very similar block model to sea pickles, and could be a really good decorative light source. In this same clip as well, we can see a new underground structure that could be generated, which is like a sort of smelter room, or maybe even a little like mini base underground, so that also looks cool. Now let's take a look at the Warden clip a little bit closer. The first thing that I noticed that wasn't mentioned, and that I found interesting at least, was that the skulk sensors and the Warden actually seem to work together for range detection, meaning that a Warden can have a much larger effective range than it normally has on its own if strategically placed or spawned near skulk sensors, which act like literal Wi-Fi extenders for them. It's also visible that after the Warden detects a certain amount of sound, this animation, presumably of rage, plays and causes it to get much faster. Now there are two theories here. One, that the rage animation is actually some sort of attack or action the Warden does to either harm the player or track him more easily. Or two, it's a telegraph or signal to the player for when the Warden will no longer be distracted by snowballs because it knows of the player's presence. It's also possible that this roar is not what causes the speed increase I mentioned earlier, and instead the speed of the Warden is tied directly to the amount of sound, or to use Tango's amazing metaphor, clank, that a Warden detects, and the more sound you make, the faster it gets. Also, much later in the livestream, you can see the Warden do this, which could suggest some sort of ground pound attack from the Warden as well. It's also a nice tidbit of information to know that for some reason, Wardens and bunnies will be friendly. At least that's what this concept art suggests. Another really cool piece of trivia you can see from this clip is that you can calculate more or less the health that the Warden might have, because King Bee Dogs in the video clip does attack back to the Warden. Everyone knows that the Warden can two-shot a player in full netherite, but how many hit points does it have? Obviously I can't accurately calculate this since King Bee Dogs died before killing the Warden, but using the max damage values from the wiki, we can calculate the maximum health that the Warden must have from what we know. However, adding up the bow shots, 1 fully charged doing around 9 damage and 6 medium charged each doing around 6 damage, the hits from the unenchanted netherite sword with 1 uncharged doing 1 damage and 3 charged each doing 8 damage, means that the Warden can take at maximum 70 damage, which is a massive 35 hearts. For reference, I took all of those damage values from the official Minecraft wiki, I didn't test them out for myself in-game. Let's leave the deep dark for now though, and talk more about other features. For example, Vu talks about how mountain generation is being changed, but it was later confirmed that in addition to this, that mountains were extremely tall, over 400 blocks tall to be precise, which means we're getting an increase to the height of worlds in Minecraft, and that the build limit is going to be increased from 256 to something larger for the first time in years. There's not much left to talk about theory-wise from now, so let's move a little bit quicker with these secrets. Here you can see some sort of new stone texture near the crystal geode, and it's been theorized that this stone, along with the new texture we saw in the deep dark, hints at limestone and marble respectively being added, both of which seem to be purely aesthetic blocks without any real functionality. Next, let's talk about the newest ore that's been added to Minecraft: copper. So, as you probably know, copper gets slowly oxidized over time as it's placed down in Minecraft to mimic the real-life oxidation of copper into a greenish substance called patina, which is the reason the Statue of Liberty is green and not orange. But enough of the nerd stuff, you want to hear about copper in Minecraft. Which I guess is still nerd stuff, but anyway, it's been confirmed by Lady Agnes on Twitter, aka that nice lady who was talking in the livestream, that you'll be able to freeze copper in certain oxidation states, and that even though in the livestream it took 16 days for copper to oxidize, that this length of time might be changed or even linked to other phenomena like rain, based on the community's feedback. There aren't too many very large things to mention anymore, but at this point in the livestream you can see that bundles are now the first items in the game to have reverse durability bars, where they increase as they get more and more filled up with more and more items. Another very cool thing about bundles is that they can contain items based on their weight. I'm not sure of the proper term for that, but basically since ender pearls only stack to 16, only 16 pearls at maximum can fit in one bundle, meaning that one ender pearl has an equal weight to 4 flowers, for example. Because you count the pearls in this bundle, there are 16 and the bundle has the full texture, and yes, I sat down and did that. What do you think I meant when I said frame by frame analysis? You can also stack ender pearls, eggs, and other similar items with normal items, as can be seen from this bundle, though it's unclear whether swords or other tools will completely fill up a bundle, or whether they'll act differently. Lastly, some more interesting things. Some blocks can't be brushed by the brush in the archaeological sites, which could entail a new block tag being added. Also, this sign here could have been placed by the player, but it could also be naturally generated, which would be the first time, as far as I'm aware, that a naturally generated structure contains written signs. And finally, the last thing that I noticed was that even though you can only see purple and pink axolotls in the gameplay clip shown here, yellow axolotl concept art can also be seen, which means that the yellow axolotl could be like a pink sheep. Ultra rare, but naturally spawning. So that's it, those are all the features that I found in Minecraft Live that you might have missed if you weren't watching as intently as some of us were. So I really do hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to check out my Discord, link in the description. It's a pretty cool place, I hang out there every now and again, so yeah. As always, at the end of these videos, I have to give a massive shout out to my channel members, Thunderball101, LeBron James, Ender Pekka, and Gamer Cyclops, all of whom are at Wizard tier and therefore get their names read out. Thank you again to all of those people. And I really do hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, make sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff. And I will see you in the next video. See ya!